Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. Our presentation today is on doing calendars in SharePoint. So let's go ahead and jump in. First, we'll do some intros and ground rules. I'm Will Cooper. I am a SharePoint solutions developer, and I do lots of things related to Microsoft 365 and SharePoint. I also have a YouTube channel. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. That's called SharePoint Smart. There's over 250 videos on my channel about all kinds of interesting things you can do in SharePoint. So I hope you'll check that out. And I also run a toolkit called SharePoint Dashboards. This is a subscription-based service where you can have up to 200 different templates, which you can add to SharePoint. And I'll show you that after our main presentation if you want to stick around. And Infowise is our organization that provides Ultimate Forms in the calendar solutions that we're going to take a look at today. I've worked with my team for more than 10 years. Our philosophy is to make things simple and easy and all about improvement. We're always looking to improve how our tools work, add new features, and make things better. Ultimate Forms is a full solution toolkit that you can add to your SharePoint environment. It works both for on-premise SharePoint and also for SharePoint online. And it allows you to build out your solutions without having to write any code. So you don't have to be a developer to use our tools or build the kind of solutions that I'm going to show to you. We do want to interact with you guys, so if you have any questions or comments, the way you can do that is through the Q&A tool in the webinar interface. So please take advantage of that. Give me time to get through my presentation, and I promise I'll try to answer your questions. So that's how you can interact with us. As I mentioned, Ultimate Forms is available both for Microsoft 365 and on-premise. So no matter which flavor of SharePoint you use at your organization, you can use these tools and you can use everything that I'm going to show you today. This is how I think of SharePoint out of the box. It's limited. There's a lot of things that we want to do that aren't there. And so that's a key issue. So you're going to want to be able to have the ability to do things like custom forms and especially custom calendars. You add Ultimate Forms, it's going to give you those capabilities. All right, so let's focus on our topic today, which is calendars. So this is a screenshot showing some projects I have loaded into a SharePoint list, and this is what it looks like with the out-of-the-box SharePoint calendar. So right off the bat, let's talk about what doesn't work here. Notice we've got the links that say, +4 more, +5 more. So most of the information is hidden in the view. So as soon as I add more than a sparse few events, I can't see what's going on. Clearly, this calendar isn't designed to work for a situation where I have, in this case, a long-running project. It's designed for, single events at an isolated period of time. The hover doesn't work. There's no abilities for repeating events. Just pretty much most of the things about this interface just aren't workable except for the most simple of all scenarios. No email notification set up through this. So really quite limited, not going to be appropriate for any kind of calendar that you'd use on an extensive basis. And so probably for most Microsoft customers, they're either going to use this rarely, only for simple situation, or just not use it at all. All right, so let's talk about what is it that we want to have in a calendar. What's key functionality? What are the things that we need to be able to do in order for us to have a calendar where we can collaborate and get user interaction and have something people actually do want to use? Well, we're going to run through some of these key functions. So we certainly want to have the ability to look at different views of events. So different snapshots of time. So you're going to need to make sure you have your day, week, month view. Not only that, a really important thing to do, especially when you think in terms of projects, I know a lot of you guys manage projects, is to have a Gantt view, which is a timeline showing parallel projects going on over a long-term basis. We're going to want to do color highlighting. So we don't want just what I call the polar bear in a snowstorm. We want to have colors because we can indicate things like status or categories and differentiate between different things. That can do a lot to, demonstrate different concepts. Paired with that, even better is to be able to use icons to signify things. Maybe if it's a trip that's going on, that's going to be a car icon. If it's something related to a key event, maybe that's a star. Icons can help signify something in our events rather than just plain text. We definitely want to be able to do search and filtering. In a sophisticated calendar solution, I'm not going to have just a sparse few events. I'm going to have lots of events. Hopefully we have lots of people participating, lots of things on there. And therefore, we need to have the ability to filter that down, because when you think of that month view calendar, things can get very busy very quickly. We need to be able to do reoccurring events. That, of course, happens all the time. We have our weekly meetings, that type of thing. We need some way to facilitate that. And out of the box, SharePoint has nothing to deal with that for you. Email reminders, of course, we'd like to let people know just before that meeting gets started. It helps to make sure that we have good attendance. So we want to make sure that's part of what we're doing. And then details. So I talked about how we can have a lot of events showing up in a calendar. We need some kind of system where normally I just see a nice compact short reference to an event, but when I hover over it, I need to see detailed information. I need a window to pop up showing me all that information, but only in the context of me wanting to check out that specific event. We're going to need to have list views also. So along with the calendar views, we need to have a SharePoint list view that's appropriate for events. So we want to have formatting that's going to tie to that so that we can find it in that manner as well. We're going to need custom forms. So depending on what kind of events I'm doing, I may have different forms for that. So if I have a project calendar, I'm thinking about a longer timeline. I may have team members that are part of the project. I may need to add tasks. There's different custom fields that I'm going to want to set up, and I'm going to want a custom form to go with that. And then, of course, we're going to want to have a nice landing page, which should be a home dashboard. So these are things that you should look out for as I show this. We need to have all this kind of functionality baked into our solution in order to have a complete and comprehensive calendar in SharePoint, which, as I say, normally can't do this. And I'm going to show you how you can get what you want. All right, out of my boring PowerPoint deck, I do want to mention, before I forget, everything I show you today is going to be free to download as a template from our site later today. And also, I'm going to record this session, so we'll post it up on YouTube, and you can check it out in case you want to review anything I'm showing or share it with one of your colleagues. But you'll be able to download this from our template section. I'll explain more about how to do that later. All right, so we're going to start with the bad, and then we'll get to the good. So here we go. Here's the out-of-the-box SharePoint calendar. And, I love Microsoft. I love their tools. And this is just something they have which is missing all kinds of things that you need. So here we are in a calendar, and it just is broken. I'm hovering over events. The whole page is lighting up when I have a project. In this case, I've got 7 different projects, and only 2 of them are showing in the view. It shows me a link that says 5 more. I click on that. It does nothing. I can go on. This just does not give me any of the kinds of things that I want to do. So really no argument to be made. There's no way you can make this calendar incorporate the things that you're going to want. It just won't give you what you need. All right, so you need to be able to add something into SharePoint to do what you want. All right, so what I have here, I've got a couple different lists, and we're going to look at things first from a user perspective, the user experience, and then after I get through all that, I'm going to show you how you're able to configure this and set up the back end, if you will, to make your forms and your calendars do what you want. All right, so let's start with the projects calendar, and we're going to start with the list view. Now, this doesn't look like a normal out-of-the-box SharePoint view, and that's because we've done some formatting. So we got some formatting on the buttons. You notice right away we've got icons, color highlighting. Pretty much everything looks different, and it's really about having a compelling looking list view dashboard. Some of these columns have formatting put onto them that are from another tool I'll talk about later, which is SharePoint Dashboards. But most of what we're showing in this first part is really about what Ultimate Forms brings to the table, because that's really the key core functionality to let you do these calendars. So I've got a custom form set up with this. Let's go ahead and do a new event just to try this out real quick. Let's set up a new meeting, and I'm going to put in, or this is for a project. I forgot. I've got a meeting calendar. I'll get to that. Okay, so we're going to do will webinar project. Okay, in this case, we're thinking about a long-term project. We're not interested in times. We're interested in dates. So let's do the 11th and have this end on the 22nd. And I can add whatever fields I want to the form. Remember the icons that you saw on the dashboard? You can set up whatever you want for your own. These are actually just emoji characters. You can just put whatever you want in your drop-down list. I've just added some that I found that I like. And then I'm going to pick a category. So we're going to say that's IT. And then I've got a status. Since this is project planning, I'll say it's in progress. And then I can put whatever notes I want. More information here. And this, of course, can have lots of details. Now, that does raise up an issue, is that how do you deal with that in the calendar? How do you deal with being able to provide that detail information but not overload your calendar quickly? And that's where that hover effect is going to need to take place. Okay, so there's my event down at the bottom. I think we can all agree it stands out. And I can do all my sorts and filtering on this view. It's one way for me to look at things. So if I just want to see the IT projects, obviously I can just filter and sort. Most of us are real familiar already with all of those standard list view options. Okay, so that's projects. And let's go to the calendar. I'm not going to hold out on you guys because that's what we're here for. So here's the formatted calendar page for projects. This is using Infowise Ultimate Forms. This is a special web part that's a part of their tools. It's their modern calendar web part. And you'll see that it's loaded with features that are completely missing in what I showed earlier. So now we've got a view which is handling lots of information. So I have all these concurrent projects going on, and I can actually make some sense out of it. So it's not hiding things. And then there's the detail information. So there's a lot of detail packed into these projects. And even though I've got these all loaded into a calendar, I can see all of that. Furthermore, if I click on it, rather than that sidebar we saw earlier, it's actually going to take me into the form. I can do my edits. I can make my updates to this event whenever I want. It's going to take me over to whatever form I want. And you can make that form work however you want. All right, so we have to have different views, of course. So I've got my arrows. Naturally, I can go back and forth between the months on the calendar to check things out. And then if I want a new event, I've got little buttons on my toolbar. So I just can click the plus icon, and it'll take me to a new event form, just the same way it did from the list view. And then I can pivot, and I can get to my different views. So there's my day view, week, different week view, month, and then here's another one, which is not a part of SharePoint normally. This is the Gantt view. Gantt views are great when you're trying to think about project performance and planning for your resources, when things are starting and ending, that type of thing. So this will give you that. Not only that, you can actually do different time frames, which is kind of cool. So maybe instead of looking at a month by month, maybe I want to think in terms of a longer view. I can do a year, and then it's actually showing me the whole year, and I can scroll back and forth on that. So this is showing me all those things side by side, and all of that's baked into this calendar web part. So really cool. I have a lot of different options that I can get to. All right, just as a comparison, we'll think about a different kind of a calendar. That's more about long-term planning. So that's projects. Let's get to more what we typically think about, which is just scheduling events. So I've got another list called team meetings. And in this case, it's more what we typically think about. It's actually scheduling events, especially reoccurring events with my team members. So again, I've got another list view, and you notice the icons, and we got some formatting. Again, this is including some format templates that have been brought in from SharePoint dashboards to help make this look a little bit more attractive. We've got a button to link to our web meetings for people who need that, and this is going to send out emails, that type of thing. So this is a little bit different kind of a calendar. And so to do these events, we've set up a different kind of a form because we have something different in mind. In this case, I do care about the time. So we've got it set up to show the date and the time, and then they can just pick how long that meeting's going to run. So it's going to default to an hour. You can either indicate whether it's a web meeting or a specific location, if it's on site in your office. There's the icons again. Then we've got categories. And then optionally, we can turn on a toggle to activate an email reminder. So we can go ahead and give a nudge to our attendees before the meeting. This one's also got an attachments. Maybe I've got some kind of document that's part of a presentation going on, and then a meeting link field. So you can see this form looks a little different than the last one I showed. Another thing that's handy for us is recurring events. We want a way to do that, and that's something normally we don't have the ability to do, and I'm going to show you how that can be handled with our tool. So we can do custom actions. Actions are part of Ultimate Forms, and it lets us do a little bit of automation. So if I've got a meeting and I just want to make a copy into the next week, I can do that with a couple of button clicks. I can select a meeting, go to Run Actions, and I've already set up several different actions. I can either do copy event where I specify a specific date, or I can just click this one button and it'll just give me the same meeting, same time, a week from today. It'll do it in a few seconds. It'll give me a little green confirmation, and then we've got our new meeting and we're good to go. So those are really handy when you just want to quickly have recurring events. Now you can set those up to work however you want. You could have it to give you as many options as you need to make copies of those meetings. There's my new meeting that was just copied over. Now naturally this calendar should look a little different than the other one. I'll show you how that looks. This one's going to have a meetings calendar where we see the individual events. So this is more what we're used to. And so naturally you want to set up your calendar according to what you're doing. So this is its own calendar. Now one thing I didn't show on the last one is this category filter, which is really important because the more use you get out of your calendar, the more busy it's going to get. So things can become maybe a little overwhelming or cluttered for your users. So you don't want to pack everything all at one time. And that's where this filter selection is going to become extremely valuable. So I can change that over to a different thing, and it's going to filter down those events so I get a more focused view. I'm not going to be overwhelmed by what's going on. So that's going to be another thing that's really handy. Just like in the project calendar, when I hover over the event, it shows detailed information. Now what's great is this is all configurable. So I can choose the detailed information that's going to show. That's completely in your control. And I think that's really a big part about this, because every organization, every calendar is going to be a little bit different. And you want to have the ability to take control of that and set up custom functionality so it's going to do exactly what you want. And just like the last one, I can click into that and it's going to take me to this detail form. So I can get that to get the attachments. The meeting link will be there if there's a meeting. This one's in a conference room. And I can, of course, make updates by just clicking the edit button in my custom form. So just a lot of versatility in terms of how things work. Let's talk about how you set up this kind of thing. It all starts with SharePoint lists. So basically, you could just create regular SharePoint lists as a starting point. Go ahead and add your custom fields, and at that point, you can build out a custom form. So I'll show you where you can get access to that. So once you have Ultimate Forms loaded, you'll see a new option in your command bar. You can click on Design, and in the settings screen, you can click on Form Designer. I love Ultimate Forms, but out of all the things I love this the most. Form Designer is really cool. It's a drag and drop style interface where you can drag fields out onto the form, place them wherever you want, and you can make the form look however you want. Maybe you don't like dull gray. I usually like to add color to my forms. You can just go into a style picker and pick something different. I could go for light green and just click, and what you see is what you get. So in your case, what you're going to be able to do is just add new columns, and you can add whatever fields you want. Whatever metadata you want about your event, you can add in there. This is just an example of what you can do. Okay, so that's the Form Designer. You can add in rules. You can make it, for example, where certain users can edit certain fields and other sections might be hidden. depending on what kind of situation you want. Now, the colors is something you may wonder about, and I'll tell you about how that works. With Ultimate Forms, there's a special field. It's called a color choice field, and that's very important for the calendar functionality that I showed. You might be wondering how is it that those events had different colors? The way I was able to set that up is with this color choice field. It allows you to take a regular SharePoint choice field and assign colors to the different choice values. So that maps back to my calendar view. You can choose whatever colors you want. Of course, it's good to use very light pastel colors. Otherwise, it gets a bit loud in the interface, but very simple to set up. You just use the settings to configure your choice values, and once that's set, you're good to go. The actual calendar configuration itself happens inside of this settings area under event calendars. There are 2 calendars I showed, and I'll just go into them quickly and just give you a little bit of an idea of the different options that are available to you. When I go into the calendar configuration, it wants to know the data source, of course. So I just need to tell it which list we're working with. And then in that, I have lots of options to control how this works. I can configure based on whichever view I want. As an example, in the case I gave, maybe HR is doing lots of meetings and they just want their own calendar, which just shows those events. I could set up a view of just HR events and make a page and add this calendar web part and make one just for them. So I can kind of rinse and repeat very easily. Of course, it's going to ask me, okay, well, what's the start and the end date for the data I'm looking at? If you want to pair it up with the location field, you can. And then this is the hover effect. So that's really important. Of course, our calendar really can just show the title. Otherwise, it gets overcrowded. So we need to configure what shows when I hover over those events. And that can be any of the columns from your SharePoint list. So as little or as much as you want to show, you just toggle on that box and it will do that. Here's the categories. This is how I map the color background shading, and then also set it up so we have that category filter, which is really important. Again, our calendar will get crowded very quickly without these kind of controls. We need to give our users the ability to just focus in on what they want to see and go ahead and filter out all the other noise. So I basically just updated those toggle boxes. And then there's more options. So I can just try different settings. So depending on what I'm doing, I may or may not need that Gantt view, for example. I can control how many maximum rows show in the month. All of this is configurable. These are the things that are missing to me in SharePoint normally. I don't have the ability to do anything with the out-of-the-box SharePoint calendar. What you get is what you get. And that's very frustrating. Even with coding or different work, even if I'm a SharePoint developer, I really cannot expand what that does. It's locked in, it's simple, it does not have these options. Here, I don't have to be a developer at all. I can do all kinds of configurations on how this calendar displays. One thing I didn't show is you can even allow for printing. Maybe we want to print out of that calendar view for our users. So I set up different calendar views for my events and team meetings according to how I want those to work. So that's all done from this profile. And then all I have to do is create a SharePoint page, and then I can just drop the web part onto it. So what I did originally is I created a page. I just called it projects calendar, and this adds to your web part. So normally in SharePoint, you just have your modern web parts. This adds more web parts. There's lots more that we can't cover today. The one that's on here is the Infowise calendar. All I have to do is point to the calendar profile. There it is, projects calendar 1. It loads on the page. We're good to go. And one thing I like about that is once it's loaded onto a page, I don't ever have to edit this page. If I want to update the configuration of the calendar, I just do it in that configuration screen that I showed earlier. Let's talk about email reminders, because that's a really handy function, and that's something I have set up to work on this calendar. So if I go into the design area, if you have these tools, you can set up any kind of email notification roles that you want. If you don't have this, otherwise you would have to use Power Automate, which is time consuming, and it's not the most user-friendly interface. With these tools, you can set up all kinds of email reminders. So it can be according to what you want. In our case, we had that toggle button, and it said, whether or not you want to have an email go out to the guests before the meeting. So I set that up, and it's according to date in the column start. So what this tells it is 10 minutes before that date time, it's going to go ahead and send the email. And then in there, I can use this rich text editor to, have the formatting done. This will include the meeting link too. Of course, I want people to just get that email and just click the link if it's a web meeting. So that's super handy. And in fact, in my work, I use this all the time. It really aggravates me when I show up for a meeting and other people don't show up. Of course, it's eating up my time. And so I do everything I can to nudge them. And one of the things I do is I send an automated email notification automatically on any meetings I create to people who are attending to tell them, hey, our meeting's going to start in 10 minutes. And that way it cuts down on that kind of situation from occurring. The reoccurring events is done through the actions. It was really easy to set up. I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works because you may like to configure a little different in your scenario. So I just set up these actions, and there's all kinds of different actions you can do. So for those of you guys who are familiar with workflow, this really handles all the different kinds of automation that you might want to do in SharePoint. There's many things you can do. In my case, I was interested in the create list item and copy list item. And this one is crazy easy to set up, actually. So to show that button in the interface for copying in a week out, I just said, okay, this is the copy action. I want to do a manual action. That's what made it show in the interface. And all I needed to do is copy that item and take the value that's in start, that's the date timestamp, and I literally just put start +7. I really cannot imagine this being any simpler to set up. So that's the entire action. That makes it so it copies the event. And then I wanted to make it where, give me one 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, etc. You can do more with this. You can have it where it would be copying an event monthly or yearly. That's really entirely up to you. You can just keep adding more options. You can also do an input parameter. You can have it where they pick the time. So that's how this copy event works. That's the more flexible option in case they're not using one of the usual copies. I'll show you what that looks like in the interface. So in here, if I check next to one of those options and do run actions, I'll show you. It'll ask me for the date that I want to copy it to. So I can say copy event. Now it gives me the date time picker. And I just can say, okay, that's going to be for June 5th. And I just picked my time. Now I'm doing it in a more explicit manner. So just a lot of different options with that. All right, so let that finish copying. Let me go to the interface. I want to see if you guys have questions about some of this calendar functionality. So in the meeting, go ahead and access the Q&A tool and let me know what questions you might have about doing custom calendars. I see there are some posts in here, so let me try to respond to that. Okay, there's a question about email notifications. You can certainly make this dynamic if, some people may like a reminder, some people don't. That's entirely in your control. That's just using the configuration options and email notifications. There's a question about triggering Windows OS notifications. You could do, one thing you mentioned was Teams. You could do some automation to trigger messages through Teams chat. So that would be an alternative. That's outside of the scope of my presentation today, but that would be an option. Can you send it where they can add it to their Outlook calendar? Yes, great question. I'm so happy you asked me that. That is one of our automation options under actions. You can include the reservation for Outlook. Great question. Can you display multiple properties in the calendar? You can display whatever properties you want. It's a SharePoint list. Remember that I showed the options where you can configure what shows in the hover window. It could be 50 fields. I most definitely don't recommend that, but it's whatever fields you want to add to your SharePoint list record, and then you can configure that hover window to include it. Very good questions. Thank you for those. All right, so let me kind of move on to the next thing I want to talk about. So as I mentioned, you can download precisely what I'm showing. It is this site. I'm going to, after our call, load this as a template in there. I want to show you how you can access that. So one thing that's cool, if you guys don't have Ultimate Forms already, you can just go into our site and download it for free. It's our full software. It will time out in 30 days, but that gives you a nice good chunk of time to try it out. You'll go into this settings screen and you need to click on Solution Catalog, and then you need to click on Webinars. It'll be the very first tile you're going to see when you go there later today. What you see right there is the presentation I did last month, Visual Project Management. So you just click onto the tile, make a new site in your SharePoint, and then just click install. And it's very, very easy. So you can use exactly what I'm showing right now and try it out for yourself. You can play around with it and change it however you like. So just want to make sure you guys knew about that. Okay, so getting the tools. That's at the Infowise site. If you go to infowisesolutions.com, click try now for free, click install now, and that's it. You just go through Wizard and it'll go pretty quick. It'll install the tools and then everything will be downloaded and you can try everything out. So very easy to access. If you want to know about pricing on our site, there's a link about that. This is based on the number of users in your site. If you're interested in learning about training opportunities, you can go to the tutorials page. We have something called Kickstart Training. That's for brand new people to Ultimate Forms. It's a walkthrough. It tells you about setting up your first form, that kind of thing. And then if you're interested in more in-depth training later, we do have more formal training content available, so you can check that out. There's a ton of things you can build with our tools. If you're interested in different kinds of solutions that you can build, you can browse through the templates I showed. Or if you go to our webinars page, you're going to see hundreds of different examples of different kinds of things you can build. So this is just one example of what you can do. All right, so that concludes that first part of my main presentation. There's more things I want to tell you guys about. Please keep posting in our Q&A session with any questions you have as I keep going. There's a question, what if there are 10 events in a day? Part of that was in the calendar configuration. It will handle up to 10 events in that view. You can control how many are shown, but it'll basically do like an overflow. The out of the box only shows 2, and then it doesn't even let you see the other ones. So the best thing to do is just to try it out for yourself. I think it would most clearly help you understand that. But in my opinion, it handles that situation quite well, which is not an easy thing to do because you only have so much you can show on a single web page. All right, good question. All right, so the next thing I just want to mention to you guys, I do videos on YouTube all the time, so I hope you'll check it out. I have a channel called SharePoint Smart, and you can catch other content on my site, and there are things specifically related to calendars and events and that type of thing. So I hope you guys take a peek at that. And I'm going to now talk about SharePoint dashboards. This is a companion tool for Ultimate Forms. This is something you could use in addition to Ultimate Forms, and it's all about allowing you to do what else? Dashboards. And many things that you saw in the presentation today, especially in those list views, use formatting from this site. So SharePoint dashboards is all about column formatting and view formatting, and there are 200 different kinds of templates here. You can try this out for free. In fact, all users get access to 21 templates, which are free. And if you like those, you can go on and get the whole thing, which includes 200 templates, and there's a monthly subscription if you would like to do that. Since our topic today is calendars, we'll take a look at some of the things related to calendars in this site. First, let's start with dates. All of these templates are about formatting datetime information. So some of the concepts in here include countdown, where you want to do formatting according to, how many days, weeks, hours, minutes are left, counting down to a specific date. You may like to do some formatting of the actual date time value in the display. You can show that in a box. You may be interested in the difference between two dates. Do progress bars related date, count how many days between dates. Many different options for date formatting, which you can access in there. Additional to that, there are calendar templates included in the site, which allow you to do some different things. One thing particularly I'd like to call out is you might like to have the ability to have users sign up for an event on your site. This is a kind of a web part where users can just click a button and add themselves to some kind of event that you want to promote to your whole organization, maybe on a landing page. So that's a pretty cool one. All of these are copy and paste templates like Ultimate Forms. You don't have to do any code at all. It's just simple copy and paste. Every one of these templates has a video tutorial, show you exactly what to do. So the best thing to do is just to start out by getting your free sign up, and that'll give you access to 21 of the templates for free. And then once you kind of get rolling with that, you can understand how it works, and then you can start to explore any of them. If you just want to see how any of those templates work, you can go onto the gallery page and just whatever you're interested, you can just click on it and it will show you a preview page so you can understand how it works, and then you can watch the tutorial or play around with the settings to try different options on your own. So this, just like the other things we were doing, it lets you do things like configure the color settings, have different backgrounds, different colors, that type of thing. You can configure this according to whatever your preferences are for the look and feel. So this is specific for SharePoint Online or SharePoint Server Subscription Edition. You do need those versions of SharePoint to use these particular tools. So hopefully that's something else you check out. Let me pause again and see if we got any new questions. Can you customize the form? Yes, you can do extensive form customization. So there's a question between an events list or a custom list. This is just regular SharePoint list. This is applying a calendar template across that. So as far as a series event, it's not treated as one record. So just to clarify on that, you wouldn't create an event and say it's for every time. It does require that you need to make copies of an event and handle things that way. I know there's, like in Outlook, it would be handled a little bit differently, but in SharePoint, that's how that's got to work. Good question. All right. What other questions do you have? I think we're kind of coming towards the end. So if you have any questions about Ultimate Forms or SharePoint dashboards, you can reach out through the contact form on either site. And Infowise, we have the ability to sign up for a demo. If you want to have a in-person live meeting with us, you can go to this request a demo form. We'll reply, we'll set up a meeting, and we can chat about whatever project or specific questions you have. We'd be really happy to talk to you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I will keep the meeting running so that if anybody has any additional questions, we can